Well, Mr. Donnell, welcome to life behind the gates, or technically in front of it because he was at the hospital first and the hospital. But yeah, either way, I like this new character. He came in here and good first impression as far as I'm concerned. Folks, we are here to talk about Wednesday's episode, Beyond the Gates, episode 141. Also, hey, thank you all. I saw a couple people comment on the community tab post when I made the post about, hey, the channel on the last day of September hit 2.5 million views, and I got some messages from people, and it's cool. Like I said, my main channel, I'm about less than 2 million from 85 million, but it's just cool to see this channel still, kicking. So I can't wait to see what the month of October will bring, because I'm really trying to get on the ball and maximize the earning potential by posting a lot more shorts and other forms of content beyond just the daily, well, mostly daily Beyond the Gates reviews. But yeah, this episode, I'm giving it, okay. Donnell brought this episode up. I think that he was my favorite part of the episode. This episode was a nice little cool down from the Kat, Eva, and Tomas drama. But I gotta say, even though they looked incredibly amazing this episode, Nicole and Anita brought it down so much with their uppity, judgmental behavior. The one thing I will give the episode credit for is showcasing more of the dynamic between Nicole and Anita, and how she was indeed the star child of the Dupree household, following her mother's footsteps in terms of being the child that she raised to be who she is. Because of the way they both kind of ganged up on Dani and Andre, it's like, yeah, I could see this always being how it was growing up. Nicole being the stickler for the rules, while Dani was the one who did things her own way. So, with that being said, I'm still going to give this episode a solid 8 out of 10. Yeah, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. But before we move forward in the video, make sure you take a moment to hit like and subscribe. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. And yeah, it is 1:35 a.m. I woke up at 12:15 because I went to bed at like 9:30. So I'm going to be up for a while. So side note, if you are on my other channel, Our Kind of Entertainment, yeah, I will be doing my Zatima episodes 7 and 8 reviews later today. So keep an eye out for that on my other channel. So we start off the episode with Anita stopping by Nicole's to talk about the situation involving, well, let's be real, two individuals they're close to ruining their lives. Double D, Doug and Dani. Now, Nicole actually tattles yet again. Sheesh, what a snitch. Basically telling her mom that despite the announcement that Andre made about an annulment taking place, they're going to stick it out. And that's when Anita's like, yeah, we have to put an end to this. So over at Dani's place, her and Andre are getting cozy as they talk about Chelsea. And I believe they give her a call to mention how proud they are of her. And once they get off the phone, Andre asks if does Chelsea, has she said anything about our, recent nuptials? And she mentions how well, she always gets the silent treatment whenever she's ticked off about something. So that's when she orders her husband to cuddle her, and he's like, oh, well, I can get used to that. And then they start making out, only for Anita to just storm on in. It's going, oh, for goodness sake, it's the afternoon. Wait, there's a like time schedule for when to be intimate. And I saw people online going off about this because Dani just gets up and looks at her mom in shock because Anita just storms in there, announces that she wants to speak, or demands that she wants to speak with her daughter alone, and that's when Dani claps back, threatening to take her house key. Everybody's like, this is a grown woman in her 50s, right? Yeah, I think Dani's in her 50s because her and Bill, what was it, met Bill in her late teens, like when she was 19 or something. And then wait, because somebody in the comment is going to correct my timeline here, and please do, because I forgot. Dani started modeling when she was like 19, and she was at the top of the fashion world for a good 1.5 to 2 years. She met Bill in her early 20s. Then they were married for like 3 decades. So yeah, she's in her 50s. Yeah, so basically her mom, but then again, I'm going to be real. Parents don't care. Like, it doesn't matter how old you are or whatever, but they don't barge in. I mean, I'm sorry. They don't take the time to be polite. They just barge in. However, I will say my parents, ever since I got my house, they politely not. They only come in the house when they, want to come in. Other times, like, hey, I'm just came off to drop off some mail that was at, my house instead of yours, or just seeing how things are going. That's it. So there's that. But yeah, Anita just storming in there like that. And I'm like, that's messed up on so many levels. And I love how a lot of people, even the Anita stans, were like, okay, Anita, you doing too much. So Andre leaves, and then, that's when her mom goes in about how he's just a boy. And you give me an explanation about this. So that's when she goes in on Dani about making bad decisions while drinking, and how Andre might be a bad influence on her. So yet again, it's like they're really just shoving all the quote unquote blame on an outsider. Like, how dare an interloper like Andre, make such a rough influence. Also, Dani looked hella fine in that outfit today. I gotta say. Oh, okay. Anyway, I got distracted. But yeah, basically just absolving Dani of any accountability for making this decision outside of the drinking issue. And what got me going is earlier in this show, we saw that her drinking was an issue. And if memory serves, wasn't Vernon the only one who was aware? Because if I remember correctly, Dani was at the country club and she ordered some orange juice it was spiked orange juice. And I remember when it got to the table, because I think Dani had stepped away to make a phone call. Vernon actually came and sat down with Dani. So after Dani had left and the orange juice came, he's like, freshly squeezed OJ. And when he took a sip, his face afterwards was like, what? And then that's when Dani rushed back in. He's like, oh, sorry, Daddy, gotta go. I forgot my OJ. And then he looks at her like, right, OJ. So I don't remember fully if it was ever brought up to anyone outside of Vernon's knowledge about her drinking issue. Like I said, feel free to let me know in the comments. And for those who question my, authenticity, I have watched every episode, but I forget some stuff. Not everything, but some stuff. And it seems like Anita is coming down way harder on Dani for this, as opposed to the days where she would be blackout drunk, which was at that point in the series my personal moment of, I think I like Andre and Dani more as confidants and friends rather than, sexual partners, because I remember the first time Andre got to Dani's and found her passed out on the floor. And within the continuity of the show, she had just left the country club, smiling, making believe everything is fine with the family. But then she gets home, drinks the bottle till it's empty, and then she just passes out. And then by the time Andre gets there, it's like late evening or nighttime. So Dani had been passed out on the floor drunk all day. And it was in those moments where Andre pulled her out of the pit. And that's when I really saw them as more like, yeah, they are there for each other when they need it the most. And it doesn't even involve intimacy. It's more like, emotional concern and just being there for, Dani when she has no one else. At least she thinks that and feels that way. And to be completely honest, when you look at her wild child tendencies and the way her parents are, specifically her older sister and mother, heck, this episode pretty much proved it. It's difficult for her to come to them with problems because the first thing they'll do is judge before show compassion. Now, from there, Dani says, you couldn't be any more wrong about Andre. And that's when she says that it hasn't been about liquor, but my addiction to Bill. And she is saying to her mom that things are never perfect, but I'm addicted, and Andre gave me a non-destructive outlet. So that's when her mom goes in on her about shooting up a wedding and marrying her sister's nephew. And she worries that at this rate, you'll end up killing Bill the next time you go after him. But, Anita, have we forgotten, or more specifically, have you forgotten, you were the person that demanded your daughter go to this wedding? Because I remember saying during the first week of the show, like, based on Bill's blackmail of getting the Duprees to round up the community to go to this wedding, I don't think Dani was necessarily a requirement. Because Dani's like, I'm going to get on a plane and go to Paris. But then Anita's like, no, we're going as a family. And it's like, what the? And that's when she stormed out, because Dani literally told her mom, look, you can disinherit me, take me out of the will. I don't care what you do. I am not going. And then that's when Vernon came out there. Basically her mom is the bad cop. Vernon is the good cop. Baby, come on. Your mother and I have done so much for you, and we wouldn't ask you to do anything unless it was extremely important for the sake of the family. And that's when Dani agreed to do it. But yeah, for Anita to go like, you shot at the wedding. Well, if you didn't force her to go, because something tells me Bill would not have cared. I mean, sure, he would have made a snarky remark, but I don't think he would have, held leverage over the Duprees if Dani was like the only person not to show up. So I just wanted to say that as well. And that's when Dani says she's not going to prison. And her mom orders her to get over Bill before it costs her everything. I mean, it has been 140 episodes, Dani, aka several months, but whatever. Now, Andre goes to Nicole's to complain about Anita kicking him out, and I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Because your aunt doesn't really care for, your sister-in-law doesn't care for this marriage either, so I don't really know what you think you're going to accomplish by going over here. And then they talk about Dani's drinking issue, and Nicole mentions how her mom is concerned. Wait, didn't Nicole know about it? I think Nicole might have known about it. So that's when, I think Andre didn't go into all the details, but he did mention to his aunt at the time, how concerned he was. Yeah, I just saw Dani and she didn't look okay. So, yeah. So Nicole asked if, I ain't gonna hold you. See, the Nicole in this scene is the Nicole I wish we would have saw earlier, before, she went in, basically all that displaced anger when she went in on Andre. What I liked about this was she was asking the hard-hitting questions. Now, if you watched the most recent Superman movie, that scene where Lois is interviewing Superman in the apartment, just doing a no holding back interview. Hey, I don't care if we're dating or whatever. I'm a reporter. You're the person I'm doing the interview with. I'm asking you the hard-hitting questions. This is what that scene reminded me of. So she's like, okay. If my sister was sober, would you have married her? And that's when he's like, well, I mean, she was upset because, the whole Bill setting boundaries thing. All right. And I can understand my sister and how she might want to do tick for tat, marry a younger man the same way her ex Bill married a younger woman. But what about you? Did you marry my sister because you were depressed over Ashley's recent engagement? And then that's when Andre says, well, I was hurt when I, heard the news, hence why I was drunk at the country club to begin with. So that's when she's pushing Andre to get that annulment. And she points out, I feel like this was the jugular. She mentions how the age gap is pretty big. And my sister is too old to have kids, more kids. I mean, what if you want a family someday? Basically, Andre, everything is all peachy, peaches and cream now. You're having a great time with my sister. But what's going to happen a couple years down the line and you decide you want to start a family? But because Dani is too old for more kids, you can't have kids with her. And then she takes it a step further. When you think about the circumstances in which you got married, you were in your feelings about Ashley's engagement. Dani was in her feelings about Bill and Haley. You come to realize you made a risky move a hasty decision when you were drunk because both of you were in your feelings and in the bottle over not being the first pick for another person. Basically, the person both of you wanted didn't choose you. They chose someone else, and you found solace in each other. So when you really evaluate the situation, Andre, you're Dani's second choice, and that's not a good thing. And that's when Andre's like, he kind of comes out of his daze and is like, whoa, how do I know? You're saying all this stuff, but what about you? How do I know you're not just jealous that your sister looks more stable than you are right now since your marriage is falling apart? Nicole thinks that's horse crap, but then she decided, I ain't gonna hold you. Nicole held her own. Like, Andre tried to come in swinging, but she's like, oh, okay, well, how about this, Andre? If Ashley becomes single again, like her and Derek break off the engagement for whatever, what would you do? How would you feel about that? And he doesn't give an answer. So I'm like, dang, checkmate. But that's the thing, though, because Andre, with one statement, kind of had her in a corner. Because remember, like I just said, Nicole was like, punching him. Bam. Oh, Bill's the one she wants, your second choice. Bam. Oh, if you were, if you and Dani were sober, if you actually married her. Bam. And was this all about, you being in your feelings about Ashley? Bam. And then when Andre had one up on her, and what about you? Are you jealous of Dani? Yeah, what about Ashley? What if she got single again? Dang it. So I ain't gonna lie. I don't think Nicole would have gone that low had Andre not made a good point. Just think about it. Now, speaking of good old Bill, he makes a stop by the casino to discuss Doug with Joey. And he was curious to know if Joey had anything to do about the accident. And the reason he's, asking is because, well, hey, I warned you about the whole plan to take, or Doug's plan to take him down. But Joey just mentions that, look, Doug was a drunk and everything that happened was a coincidence. And I wasn't even in town. And Bill is like, yeah. I'm pretty sure you only split town to give yourself an alibi. And it's funny because he took Vanessa with him, which was an interesting callback to when Martin was holding that press conference at the diner. And Vanessa was there. I think Joey actually called Vanessa there because he wanted an alibi / witness. This was during the time where he had gotten Marcel to take out Kenneth. So you see how Joey moves, right? Now, that's when Joey mentions that loser Doug was too inept to do any real harm to him or his organization, and I had no reason to hurt him. And that's when he tells Bill, like, hey, I didn't sign that man's death warrant. So we go over to Bill's office, and Haley isn't too happy to discover that Bill had Caroline do some research to find Dani's marriage certificate. And Caroline mentions that, it's a professional interest, but Haley she isn't buying it whatsoever. And she mentions that, at this point, I feel like Chelsea's kidnapping was the catalyst for Bill falling back in love with Dani. But that's when Caroline's like, look, just talk to your husband rather than jump into conclusions. And that's when Bill comes back and Caroline hands him the paperwork. And apparently no annulment has been filed and there was no prenup. So once Caroline steps out of the office, Haley she's a child. I mean, just the way she's acting, Bill, it's like she's a bratty teenage daughter and Bill is the hardworking dad who just doesn't even flinch at his child's outburst because he's used to it. And it makes sense. This man had 2 teenage daughters who are now grown women, and Haley's coming across as more immature than either one of them right now. So Haley goes in about, demanding, like, why are you looking into this? And he's like, well, I mean, can't forget that based off Dani's parents, she will inherit a fortune, and it should go to our kids, not her young husband. Because, she married some player. And Haley doesn't buy any of this, especially since Andre already has a fortune. Because if you remember, after his parents passed, he had a huge inheritance, and he lives off of that. The money he makes from his photography, he donates that to worthy causes that his parents supported. So Haley, yet again, doesn't buy Bill's excuses, and she leaves in a huff. I mean, this woman went so far as to throw papers in his face and stick her finger in his face, but Bill didn't even flinch. It's like he's so unbothered because you could tell he's just focused on this situation with Dani and Andre. So after Haley leaves, and we actually get Dani popping up. So this is the scene most people are talking about because the chemistry between Bill and Dani is still there. She mentions how at this point, yeah, an annulment is what I need because actually no. Basically, what's going on between her and Bill needs to come to a head before it just blows up out of control. And she and Bill talk about boundaries. So he's like, you know what? Here's how we ought to settle this. How about we get into an argument so fierce and intense that we never want to talk to each other. We never want to see each other again. So that's when they start insulting each other. And you notice how Bill takes a step forward every time he has a clap back until he calls her beautiful, and then they start kissing. Well, actually, 2 insults in, and he kisses her. Because I think if we go back to that episode where Bill came over because he needed a deed to some beach house property that they used to own and he was about to sell, Dani kissed him. But this time, Bill kisses Dani. And just based off of this one scene, I'm like, these two must have had crazy sex whenever they got into fights. Yeah, I could see it. So this is when we go over to the hospital and Shanice and Ashley talk about Derek's progress. And of course, we know Shanice knows the real story. Ashley doesn't. And she's worried that Derek must be, so scared because there's been no progress thus far. He's been consistent with his, physical therapy and whatnot, but with no change. I hope this doesn't break his spirit. That's when Derek shows up and Shanice offers to fit him in for some therapy because, he's been working out at home. And remember, she's probably still in her feelings after hearing about that breakfast burrito that Jacob brought him. So Ashley steps away, and that's when Shanice tells Derek about coming clean regarding the feeling in his leg. So he pretty much, avoids the conversation and, wheels off into the distance. That's when Donnell shows up, and great first scene. He meets Shanice, and Shanice remembers, you're Dr. McBride's son. Wow, it's like, where is your sister here too? And he mentions how his sister's too broken up and opted to stay in school as opposed to coming home. And that's when he asks questions about, hey, I came to visit my dad's office, to just get a reminder of how things were in his element. But it turns out the office has already been reassigned, and it's a shame after his dedication to the hospital to just suddenly give it to someone else. And that's when Shanice calmly says, actually, it wasn't sudden. Your father hadn't worked here for months. Wait, what? I didn't know this. Did he start his own practice? Was he working somewhere else? What's going on? Nobody told me anything. It's like, I think that's something you need to talk to your mother about. So he thanks her for being more honest with him than his family was. So then he leaves. And that's when Ashley goes to see Derek. And they talk for a bit before Shanice comes in with a vibrator and asks what progress he's made. So that's when he mentions how he plans to walk at the wedding. And Shanice pretty much pulls a Jacob, telling him how dumb this plan is. And so what are you going to do at the wedding? Leap up like some sort of phony faith healer or whatever to get views and likes? What you're doing is that you're saying you're doing this for some grand event, but in actuality, this is just your way to hold Ashley because you want to make sure she doesn't leave you for Andre. And he's married to Dani, so it shouldn't matter. And he's like, wait, what? Because I don't think Derek knew at this point. So Shanice just tells him, this big reveal, don't do it. Just tell your fiance the truth. That way you can at least have an honest relationship as opposed to building it on lies just to get to this wedding day to secure that that's your woman for the rest of your life. And when Derek starts to realize, yeah, I think maybe you're right about this, we go over to Andre, who pops up at the hospital. And he talks to Ashley for a bit, and she mentions how she hopes he and Dani are fine and happy. And he mentions that, Yeah, I mean, we are. And I still live on my own for right now, but, you know, we're cool. We're cool. And she realizes that, wow, I mean, now you're Naomi's stepfather. And he says that, yeah, we actually haven't seen the kids since we got hitched. And that's when she's like, oh, well, that doesn't sound much like a marriage to me. Damn, Ashley. And he mentions how, well, it was unconventional, but it's real. And then that's when she's like, well, it's for the best that he's unavailable. And that's when Derek actually comes out from around the corner and Andre takes off. So Derek's face says it all, because as soon as Andre leaves and Ashley's like, so how did therapy go? He says, oh, it's all the same. So you could tell that Derek was going to tell the truth, but then yet again, just seeing the brief interaction between Andre and Ashley stoked the fires of his fear, and now he's just going to go right back to lying. So to round things out, we go over to the country club. Hey, let me know if you enjoy these reviews. You could tell that these episodes have been really good because my reviews have been longer than usual, not the usual like 15 minutes or so. All right, so we go over to the country club, and Vanessa is, you know, in tears as she's working on some funeral stuff. She's looking over cemetery brochures and whatnot, and calls Nicole to say she doesn't even know where to start. And that's when Nicole suggests that the first thing you ought to do is come up with a burial plot. That's when her son shows up, and Vanessa's just surprised by this, and he mentions like, hey, I took a leave of absence from school because I'm just not able to sit with what's happened. And he wonders if you've been have you been hiding things from me and my sister? Because I just went to the hospital and somebody told me that Dad quit months ago. So that's when Vanessa tries to calmly explain things, saying that your father was going through some personal struggles, so he resigned. And that's when he's like, look, I'm not just a kid anymore, okay, Mom? So tell me the truth. Don't sugarcoat it. And she tells him about how your dad was struggling and he got deep into gambling. And that's when he's like, I wish I had known, because maybe I could have, tried to get through to him and whatnot. And yet again, I got to admit, they did a great job casting an actor who looks like a son of Vanessa and Doug. I just can't stop, getting that out of my head when I'm watching this scene. So after he leaves, Anita and Nicole stop by, after telling off Dani and Andre, to stop by to, check on Vanessa. And she mentions how Donnell showed up, and Vanessa's worried that she failed as a mother. And Anita says, oh, no, you haven't. I mean, we've all been in your shoes. Yeah, they all failed in one way or another. I mean, Nicole, I feel failed. Nicole feels like a failure because she didn't know about the turmoil her son went through the past 2 years. But I think she low-key failed recently when it came to Kat siding with Eva over her own blood daughter. Then when it comes to Anita, I don't get me started. And then when it comes to Vanessa, it's hiding stuff. So that's when we end the review and the episode with Donnell popping up at the casino. And he asked Randy for some information. And Randy's like, this ain't no internet. But it's like, wait a minute. You're Donnell McBride. Hey. And I remember you were younger, you used to love creamsicles. And they sit down for a bit, and Randy, tells him a bit about his dad in terms of him being a stand-up guy for most of his life. But at the end, things took a turn for the worse with drinking and gambling. So Joey pops up in the middle of the conversation and tells Randy to get back to work. And once he leaves, that's when Donnell can ask if Joey owns the place, and he accuses him of his father's death. And that's how the episode closes. So, yeah, this is a great episode. I'm getting a bit tired of the self-righteousness of Anita and Nicole, but other than that, pretty solid all the way around. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hey, if you want to donate to the channel, go down to the description box. You'll see the information to my Cash App, Zelle, PayPal. And if you don't want to donate, hey, channel memberships are a thing. If you want to give a couple bucks a month by being a member, feel free. You get a cool channel badge, and when I go live, your comments stand out. There are a whole bunch of perks, some of which I haven't really implemented just yet. I'm trying to fine-tune everything, but if you made it this far in the video, trust and believe that does wonders for the channel in terms of pushing this video out to the algorithm. So give it a thumbs up, comment your thoughts on the episode, and I will catch you all in the next one.